Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the career essay, make sure you understand what I'm looking for from you there, and go over MLA formatting a little bit just to make sure you understand kind of the basics there. I'm doing this video on Friday, October 2nd for Monday, October 5th. The first two paragraphs of the career essay are due. Just want to make sure you're getting started on it. For next Thursday, you're just going to send me what you have so far. Then the following Monday, the full draft of the career essay is due. I'm about to go over that here in just a second. But after that, there'll just be one more essay, and that'll be it. So kind of heading towards the end of the semester, which is always kind of nice. The career essay is up here on the content page. Eventually, as always, under here under essay projects. All right, I'm going to go ahead and download this. But it's right there. It can be a little scary at first because all of a sudden the word count's going up a little bit, and we're going to start incorporating some research. But you're going to see I'm going to be helping you quite a bit along the way. There it goes, fine. For this essay, you're going to write a 1,200 word essay that researches the job you hope to obtain with your future 2-year, 4-year degree or your certificate, which is you all are certificate students. 1,200 words sounds like a lot, but you're already writing 800 words with no research. So, 1,200 words is not going to be that big a stretch, hopefully. It may not be something you're excited to do. It's like, oh boy, 1,200 words, but don't be too scared by the word count. We're going to continue to employ MLA formatting. We're going to start putting research into our writing. For this one, you're going to have a minimum of 3 sources. For 2 of those, I'm going to tell you exactly where to go for the sources. So it's not going to be some big mystery. Then probably one other you're going to find on your own. So it's not going to be like 58 note cards and 15,000 hours of research. Pretty focused research for this one. I want you to use a short quote, a long quote, a summary, and paraphrase, which I'm about to go over a little bit. And I want you to start trying to use these punctuation. They're not going to be for a big part of the grade, but I want you to start kind of using maybe some different punctuation to help improve your writing a little bit. And that's ultimately the goal of the course. If you're wondering, it's like, why do we have to get into MLA formatting and documentation? Don't forget, once you take this class, you're free to register for Comp 1. Assuming you pass, which we're going to assume. But you're able to go to Comp 1 and take college level writing courses. So research is part of college writing, and you have to kind of know it. Plus, you're just learning good critical thinking skills you're going to use on the job. Right? If you're going to deal with electricity, you have to meet codes and things like that, right? Same kind of thing. But your essay has to include the following sections. I'm telling you pretty much what I want in the essay, so make sure you give me what I want in the essay, right? The first section, just want a general description of the specific field. If you're here to get a welding certificate, I'm guessing, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you probably want to be a welder, but do you want to do a particular type of welding? Underwater welders make a lot of money. Of course, it's dangerous work as well. So do you want to kind of get into something kind of maybe a little exotic like that, or are you looking to get into a program at Eastman? Try and be as specific as possible about what you want to do. Do you eventually want to open your own business, that kind of thing. But hopefully that's kind of be your introduction paragraph there. You might tell us a little bit about what got you into that field. The second section, you're going to start providing the detailed requirements for you to get hired for that job. Particularly college degrees or certificates, any other certifications. There are some professions, like for nursing, for example, you can take all the nursing classes, you can graduate. If you don't pass the NCLEX exam, you're not a nurse. You have to pass that exam to be able to work in a hospital. So it's kind of scary, right? You're going to go through all this work, and you still got to pass another test. What kind of required physical abilities? What kind of personality traits? Do you have to work with other people? Do you have to get along with other people? Do you have to be able to communicate? Things like that. The section is also going to include your academic plan. You're going to list the college classes you need to get your certificate. And by the way, that should include any ones you've already taken as well. So I should see your entire academic plan from beginning to end in the order you're going to take those classes. Some of you already said, like, well, I'm in my last semester. I'm like, well, good. Show that on the academic plan and kind of give a yeehaw at the end of that. That's kind of the goal here, right? But you're going to discuss all that. The third section, and kind of take note of certain things like physical abilities. One of the questions we're going to start asking with this essay is, how long can you do this career? I worked in restaurants for 20 years, and when I started getting my late 30s and I'm working in a 100-degree kitchen, I'm starting to think, man, how much longer can I do this? Um, Unfortunately, I was able to get my degree in English and teach at Northeast State. Big career shift there though, right? But a lot of that was caused by me kind of getting to the point where I'm like, how much longer can I physically uh, do this job working in the kitchen? For section 3, you should provide a detailed discussion of your chosen career path. What kind of money you're going to make? Are there local job opportunities? Are there national, international job opportunities? Um, Hopefully there are, right? So if you can't find a job here in the Tri-Cities, you can go somewhere else and make some money. What's the future look like? And you're going to go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and start looking up some of this data, and you're going to put that in your paper, and that's where the research is going to start coming from. So already one source is going to be by the Northeast State website where you get that academic plan information because you have to credit sources, right? And then the next one is going to be the Bureau of Labor Statistics here for things like, just a growth industry, as a declining industry, things like that. And also, are there upward mobilities? If you're welding for 20 years and your body's starting to hurt a little bit, what else can you do? Can you move up into management? Can you open your own welding shop? What kind of things can you do with that certificate? Or do you need to come back and maybe get other certificates so you can move into a different direction? Always kind of interesting to think about. Same thing here, other possible paths this career track might open up for you. So kind of interesting to talk about and kind of think about. It's like, well, what is going to happen 20 years down the road? Section 4, want to see 3 good things, 3 bad things about the job. Where does the stress come from? And as you're giving this information, make sure you're talking about it. Different jobs have different stress, and you want to kind of discuss whether or not you can handle that kind of stress. And hopefully the answer is yes, or at least you're aware of what you're getting into when you get into that profession. A good example, if you get your 4-year degree in teaching, about half of all teachers with 4-year degrees in teaching leave the profession after 5 years, and that's a lot of education to go through to just get out of the business altogether. So it's where's that stress coming from? What kind of turnover rates are there? Are there any clubs or organizations you can start joining now that can help you get a job later on? Hopefully that's when you're doing your resume, you were kind of thinking about that. When I get my certificate, what's my resume going to look like? Is something I can be doing now to beef it up a little bit. But of course, at the end, the whole point of the essay is it's kind of a bit of an argument essay. You're going to hopefully argue like, hey, I'm on the right career path. I got a good plan. I'm ready to go. I got to get past this English class, and then I'll be ready to go, right? So that's the essay. Generally, word count's not a big problem. If it is, you're probably not putting something in there. And obviously, I'm here to help you as we look at the drafts and the paragraphs and things like that as we go along. All right. Right now is a good time. If you want to pause the video for a second, I'm going to pull up some things to talk about with MLA formatting. For MLA formatting, I want you to look. There's a couple of sample essays on the content page down here under Help Material. One's a sample career essay. I'm going to look at this sample research medical essay. It's what we're going to be using for the last essay, but I have this one labeled. And with MLA formatting, well, let me download this as well. It's easier for me to highlight things. With MLA formatting, you're looking to do 2 things. When you use sources in your essay, for example, the source of your academic plan or the source of that job information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you have to cite those sources as you use them in your essay. And that's the whole point of MLA formatting. Like it says here on the sample essay, you have to make sure you credit your sources. You can't just cut and paste off the internet and call it your own. You can, but that's a good way to fail an essay, right? You don't want to do that. And if you get into Comp 1 and start doing that, it's a good way to get in some serious trouble. And same thing, if you're reading something I've written 5 years from now and you're like, man, this is really good. Hey, Mr. Fish stole my writing. Wait a minute. You have every right to be upset, and you can get me in a lot of trouble, right? I guess I get myself in a lot of trouble. Also, you have to use sources fairly. You can't say, I can't say according to, John Doe, yada, 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 and then John Doe says, I never said that. Probably get into more trouble, and you kind of see news organizations getting into trouble for doing things like that. So you have to credit sources. You have to use them fairly. And this is a sample medical essay. And just want to give you an overview of MLA formatting and just kind of the basics of how it works. Generally, with MLA formatting, you start with your works citus page, which is a listing of the sources used in the essay. And that's all it is. And there's some certain things notice about this, but basically I'm going to do this for you. But you got to keep track of which web address, which web page, the URL for the web page you're going to for your information. And you need to keep track of that. And you'll put that URL on the works cited page, and I'll turn that into a works cited page entry for you for this essay. Then on the last essay, I'm going to try and get you to do your own works cited page entries. But hopefully, if you kind of see it as you're working on it and see me creating works cited entries, you're going to start saying, okay, I'm starting to see how this works. With both entries, if we look at this one here, you're going to start with the author's name, last name, comma, first name. If there are additional authors, they're given in regular order. Then you generally, particularly for web pages, you're going to go with the smaller unit, which is the web page. Then the bigger unit, probably the website. Then whatever other information is required. Again, we're going to be working with this over the next two essays, and I'm here to help. This is something you should be introduced to. You're not going to leave this class being a master MLA person. Or maybe you will be, I don't know. But that's basically how it works. So when you're looking at a works cited entry, here you can see there's an entry with no author. So they're going to start with the article title, then it's coming out of Newsweek. Then here's telling us it's coming out of a database, which gets a little complicated, but it's not too bad. And we'll start working with databases with the medical essay, not this one. But again, for the works cited page, basically you're just going to give me the web address, the URL for the source you're using, and I'm going to create the works cited page for you for this career essay. And when you start using sources in your essay, there's 4 different ways to use them. Let me get up here to where I got it highlighted and stuff. One, you're probably used to doing short quotes, or maybe not, I don't know. A short quote is a direct quote, word for word from a source. It's 3 or fewer lines as you type it out. And a short quote is encased in quote marks. And you can kind of see the little commentary on the side here saying, hey, this is a short quote. Generally, if you have your works cited page right, then all of a sudden the citing becomes a little bit easier because you start using the first word on your works cited page. Here's going to be Michael Castle, and a page number if you have one. For most of the things we're doing in this class, you probably won't have a page number because you're using websites. But you can kind of see when you see a citation in parentheses here, that's the author saying, hey, I've gotten this material from a source. So here the disease takes 8 to 10 years to progress. That's a fairly specific piece of information that obviously came from somewhere. And here she's saying, hey, it's coming from this source called Alzheimer's disease. It's in quote marks because it's an article title. But you can give the source in the introduction, or you can do it afterwards, but you have to have a citation. So if I say you're missing your in-text citation for this information, that's what I'm talking about. And if you go to the works cited page, you ought to see a Michael Castle and an Alzheimer's disease. And there's Alzheimer's disease, and there's Michael Castle there. And that's how it works. That's just a basic. If you have your works cited page, then when you see these citations, that's the writer saying, hey, I got this information from this source. And again, there's 4 ways to use sources in the essay. The one is a short quote. There's a good example of no, it's not. Thought it was. But here's a short quote because it has the quote marks around it. So the writer's saying, I'm taking this word for word from the source. It's 3 or fewer lines. And I'm going to cite it and introduce it and cite it, of course. So that's a short quote. A long quote is also called a block quote. It's tabbed over twice. You need to introduce it. But long quotes are easy to see because they're tabbed over twice. They're the only things that are tabbed over twice. But a long quote's a direct quote from a source that's 4 or more lines. And it's word for word, right? You can start changing quotes. Here, the brackets indicate that the writer inserted something into the quote for clarification, probably. Up here, the ellipses, the 3 dots, show that the writer took something out of the quote. And again, you got to use sources fairly. You can't take something out of a quote that changes the meaning of the quote. But there just might have been some unnecessary information there, so she took it out and shortened the quote a little bit so we didn't have to read through the whole thing, which is a good thing to do. But you can kind of see both of those are long quotes. You can tell because they're tabbed over twice. But again, every quote should have an introduction. Every quote should have a citation, whether it's in the introduction or at the end of the quote. Oops, sorry. In parentheses there. And you can kind of see the long quotes have done it both ways. Here's the first word on the works citus page. It's going to be David Carroll. Then down here, same citation, just put out the end of the quote. But that's what short quotes and long quotes look like. For summary or paraphrase, that's when things get a little tricky. For summary, you're gonna summarize. You're gonna shorten the information in your own words or sentence structure, but you still need to credit the information in that source. So here's a good example of a summary. This might have taken a page or two for the original source to get this information out, and the writer kind of said, "I can do that in one sentence." We'll do that. Don't make us work so hard for all the information. But it's there's no quote marks, so it's not a direct quote. Hopefully the writer has put it in her own words and sentence structure, but again, you're still seeing that citation saying, hey, I got this information from somewhere. Paraphrase, the same kind of basic idea, except generally a paraphrase, you restate what someone has said. So for example, if you're gonna quote, or discuss, how to do brain surgery or something, short quote's not going to be long enough to handle that material. A long quote, word for word from a source, might be too technical. You might be using a source where doctors are talking to doctors, and I'm an English teacher. I don't understand all that. So you might get a little comment saying, "Hey, I don't understand what's happening in this long quote." So I'm basically asking you to go back and do a paraphrase. If you summarize it, if you shorten or condense it in your own words or sentence structure, you might end up leaving a scalpel and some sponges in someone's head, right? So for a paraphrase, you restate what the original author says without leaving out any of the main points. But you still got to do it in your own words and sentence structure. And here's within the essay, it's going to look kind of like a summary. There's no real difference in the formatting, but you can kind of see it's longer, it's more detailed, lots of information here. Who knows? Maybe the original source was too stilted. Then she didn't like the way they phrased it or whatever. So she put all that information in her own words and sentence structure, and didn't leave out any of the main points, but still going to cite that. She got all this information from somewhere. She just didn't wake up one morning and think, in 1907, Dr. Alzheimer discovered this disease or something like that, right? She got this information from somewhere. She didn't want a long quote it or short quote it or summarize it, so she did a paraphrase. You can see right after that, a shorter passage. Again, no quote marks, so this should be a summary or paraphrase in the writer's own words and sentence structure. But she's still going to get this information from somewhere, and she's going to cite that source. And hopefully that's what you're starting to learn. So you got to cite your sources, and eventually they need to go on a works citus page. And again, I'm going to do the works citus page entry, so that's why I'm not talking about those too much. You just need to send the URL. I'll put the URL at the end of the paper. Then you'll have to go back and cite using that first word on this works citus page. But again, basically just the first word on the works citus page and a page number if you have one. So on the works citus page, there should be a Cutler and Stramick and a coping. There's Cutler and Stramick. So I could go to that page in that book and find that information if I wanted to. And there's the coping with the darkness. There's the coping citation. The coping entry on the works citus page. Get a little tongue-tied there. And I could go to that source and see what that summary, make sure she used that information correctly. And that's kind of the basic idea. If I wanted to check all this, I could just go to these, look at these citations, go to that source and see that information. There's a short quote there. You can see the quote marks around it. So I'll be able to go to that page, that site, and see that exact quote somewhere within that source, right? Again, here's a summary or paraphrase. But anytime you're talking about money or figures, that information is coming from somewhere, and you got to cite that source. This takes a little bit of practice. That's why we're doing two essays with the research a little bit. But again, you kind of see that the research is kind of de-emphasized a little bit with this first career essay. I'm telling you which sites to go to, and we're going to practice using these in the essay and see if we can get them cited. And of course, I'm going to do the works citus page for you. So that's a nice little benefit of this class. But hopefully that kind of makes sense. And when you go to look at the sample career essay, it's not labeled quite as much as that medical essay. And by the way, everything I'm talking about is down here at this MLA lecture. The most boring thing you'll ever read in your life, unless you're an English major like me, I guess. but it goes through the same information. You know, how to create works cited space entries, which again I'm gonna do for you this essay. But also how to do short quotes, long quotes, summary, and paraphrase. But if you look at that sample career essay, let me download this one again. This one's a little bit more involved than the one you're doing. This is one of my dual enrollment students over at Sutherland Central. But he's going to talk about, he's going to follow that basic format, right? He's going to tell us he wants to be a mechanical engineer. He's going to tell us, what kind of made him interested in this kind of profession, what exactly a mechanical engineer does, and hopefully he's going to get kind of specific about what he wants to do with this, once he gets his college degree. But you can see the citations. He's starting talking about the particular type of engineering. He's getting that information from somewhere, and he cites that source. And this is a summary or paraphrase. There's no quote marks around it. Then he's going to talk about, what do you need to do to become a mechanical engineer. He wants to go to UT Knoxville. But you kind of see as he gives information, he's going to cite that source. If it's in its own words and sentence structure, he's going to format that as a summary or paraphrase. And you kind of see as you go through, you see these citations. So there should be a United on the works cited page. It's going to be United States there. There it is. And that's how research essays work. The citations refer to the work on the works cited page where you're getting information from. I'm not going to read this whole essay to you. Again, don't get too intimidated by this essay. They had a little bit more to do with this one. They have to talk about the cost of college and things like that. You don't have to do that. You're here at Northeast State. But you'll see that academic plan. That's the way it should look. You should write the word, table number 1, and then tell us what specific degree or your certificate you're going for. Then list those courses term by term. He had to talk about this a little bit because he was in dual enrollment taking English classes, so you don't see the English classes here on the academic plan. Then you have to credit the source of that academic plan. And again, I'm here to help you do this kind of stuff. But hopefully, you've already turned in the academic plan. You're just going to, plug that in there and tell me where you got that information, and I'll do the works cited space for you, and we'll go back and credit that source. But as you kind of read through it, kind of notice you got to cite those sources. Here's a good example of something that's not quite perfect in this essay. He's given us some information about median pay and stuff like that, but you don't see the citation there. He's getting it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's pretty kind of clear he's doing that, but he should have a citation there because he's given us a summary or paraphrase, and we need to know where that information came from. Then he goes on to give the long quote there. We know it's a long quote because it's tabbed over twice. But again, he introduces the quote, gives a citation there. But hopefully you can kind of start to see how a sample essay works. You kind of start seeing the citation and kind of realize, oh, that's telling me which source on the works cited page he's getting this information from. Like I said, I'm not going to read this whole essay to you. Here you see a short quote, word for word, directly from the source. It's in quote marks and cited and introduced appropriately there. You can kind of see he wants to work at NASA, which is kind of neat. And actually, this student got accepted to Vanderbilt. So, if you feel a little intimidated by the essay, it's like, well, I'm very, very capable student here. But a good example of what the essay should be doing. Good use of MLA formatting overall. Hopefully, it'll give you a sense of what it's going to look like when we're done. But keep in mind, you're talking about yourself. You don't have to worry, about everything in this essay. But it kind of gives you a guide of what I'm looking for. You can kind of see this is probably 2,000 words here. This is a little bit longer than the one you're going to do. But hopefully that kind of helps a little bit. Okay, stay focused on the assignment that you've been given. Make sure you give me the information from the specific sections. And again, the first 2 paragraphs will probably just be you saying, hey, I want to do this with my certificate. And then the second paragraph probably started getting into the certificates and other requirements for the job. You may not even get to your academic plan with the second paragraph. That's what's due Monday, or at least the first 2 paragraphs of this essay. Again, don't be intimidated. Kind of take a deep breath. I'm here to help you with the MLA side, and should be kind hopefully it's kind of an interesting topic, especially when you start getting into what the future of the career looks like, and you might start thinking, wow, what other things do I need to start learning? If you start talking about things like HVAC, the older fellows I've talked to say, wow, it's just changed so much because it's all computer based now, and it's not so much mechanical as much computer information quite often with these pieces of equipment. Obviously, the parts have to work, but everything's run by computers now. Same thing with cars, right? They're just kind of rolling computers at this point. Um, so hopefully it's interesting for you. I know this one was kind of a long one, but it's kind of a lot to go over. But if you have questions, let me know. But again, I'm here to get you through the research side of it, so please don't um, develop too much anxiety about that. And hopefully, even with the last one, I'm going to expect you to know a little bit more, but I'm there to help you with the research side as well. But if you have any questions, let me know, and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye.